who said they were going to be more restrained and buy books with intention in 2022? Yes, me. I failed. Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Simon, and I know I mentioned in the last video that I was sat in this position, that it would be the last time you got to see this setup and I'd be recording from here. But as you may have seen from the thumbnail, well, as you'll have seen from that slight introduction, I have gone nuts buying books in the first half of January. A little bit insane. And I did say I was buying more intention. I mean, some of them technically arrived in December, or I bought in December and technically arrived in January, but still a little bit bonkers. But we'll go through it, we'll talk about it, we'll assess it, we'll possibly have some therapy. For those of you who hadn't guessed by now, I should have said, welcome to my channel, I'm Simon, and this is my January book haul part 1. Oof. Sorting out the shelves at the end of this month is going to be tricky. In book hauls, what I tend to do is talk about the books that I've got from publishers and the books that I bought myself. I've also realised I've got a gift, so not prepped properly. Put that there. Right, move on. Get on with it. I need to get on with it because there's so many blinking books. But as always in my book hauls, I head to books by publishers first. Then I have a book that came as a gift, and then the possibly slightly excessive amount of books that I have bought myself. Let's get cracking. So the lovely folk at Picador sent me this, which is out in April. It's Very Cold People by Sarah Manguso. Now I have two of Sarah Manguso's non-fiction books on my shelves. They're all very short, sharp, vignette-y looking books that I've been meaning to read for ages. And this, and you know if you've been watching this channel for any time, I love it, is a very vignette-y book indeed. So yeah, I'm excited for this. Don't know what it's about. Well, Very Cold People, that's all. So we'll see. It's her fiction debut, so that's exciting. Then from the lovely folk at Influx Press, and I want to read a lot more indie press published books this year. They've sent me 3. First of all, we have The Trees by Percival Everett, who's I can't think if I've heard of before or not actually. Maybe not, it doesn't say. But this is a page turner that opens with a series of brutal murders in the rural town of Money, Mississippi. This could be quite interesting because I know when I was doing my prompt jars, they're on the shelves just over there, that Mississippi was a place that quite a few of you are from. So this could be perfect when I read that. Yeah, it's a murder mystery. I know no more. I don't want to know anymore. I'm not very good with blurbs. I like to get like a tiny little feel from a blurb, and then I swiftly try and forget it because I just decide whether I want to read it or not and if I'm going to like it. The same with The Door Behind a Door by Yelena Moskovich. This is set in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Olga receives a phone call from a man she thought she'd never hear from again. Her life has changed since their childhood together in the Soviet Union. She's settled down with the girl she loves and has moved on from her previous life. So clearly something from the past is going to come right back to the fore. So that sounds like it's going to be great. And then we have From Blue to Black by Joel Lane, which is out in March. Not sure when this one's out actually. Sorry, I should have said, but I don't know. Filming in the early 1990s. I think it's about a cult band. Now I have to say, as soon as I hear words like cult band and post-punk and stuff, it's not kind of my thing. It's like when I hear about drugs in a book, I'm like, oh, I don't want to read that. But I do really like the cover, and I think because I've said that I want to read more independent published books, I'll give it a try. But yeah, music with books is it's a bit like art for me. It can go really, really, really well on the odd occasion, or go really badly quite often. Anyway, then from the folk at Bloomsbury, we have, you won't be able to see from that, Blood and Poison by Mary Watson, and the cover says, "The curse will kill me, or the jackal will catch me." And this is about a family who have inherited this kind of cursed, I said cult because I was talking about the cult in that book, this cursed exactly, it's that. Doesn't that sound great? This is all about a family who have inherited like an heirloom of a curse, and basically in each generation one of the girls will die very young, and I think it's possibly by a jackal. And this all started, I think, when it started with an ancestor called Hela, who was an enslaved woman, and it was where it all began. Just spotted that. That looks gorgeous. Intrigued for that one, very intrigued. That is out in April. They're also out in April from a small indie press, 404 Inc. is Liam Coenman's The Arena of the Unwell. And I think this is about a throuple that a young man finds himself in with two older, I don't know if they're musicians or art directors or something. But it takes us into this relationship and what's going on. And I don't know if it becomes quite, well, it certainly becomes codependent from what it says at the beginning of the blurb. But yeah, really intrigued for this. Really intrigued to read about thruples. I was in one once, so there's something for you. Mother, if you're watching this, I hope you know what that means. And if you do, please ignore that and let's never speak of it again. I was sent the paperback of Mrs. England by Stacey Halls. I talked about this recently in my Female Authors of the Future video, so I shall say no more. If you want to find out more about that there, then do. But I will be reading it as a little challenge that I've got myself before the end of the year. Very excited for this hardback that arrived. This is Christos Tsiolkas' latest novel, 7.5. I don't know what it's about. I love Christos Tsiolkas' writing though, although for some reason I didn't read his last novel, Damascus, so I should at some point. This is a rare occasion where the British cover is better than the Australian one, which is not what I say very often. But yeah, really looking forward to getting to this in due course. No idea what it's about. I just know that I love his writing, as I said, so there we go. Then we have The Family Chow. And I'm smiling at this because I knew nothing about it, read a little bit of the blurb, and I did this live on Patreon. I should say I'm recording this on Friday the 14th, just before the middle of the month, so who knows what's going to arrive in the next half of the month. We've got plenty of time. Anyway, I was saying how I don't like reading a blurb, or I'll read a certain bit of a blurb until I'm like, or and if I'm then I just get excited, close it, and that's what I did with this one, because this is all about the family Chow, who are well, in the area of town they live, people ignore all the rumours kind of going around about them. There might be some dodgy stuff going on because the food that they cook is so good and everyone wants to eat in their restaurant. That is until the head of the family is found dead in the meat freezer and all eyes go to the rest of the family. I think it sounds great. So yeah, very excited for that one, which I hadn't had on my radar at all. So it's really nice sometimes to get an unsolicited book and you think, that's very me. I should say this is from One, who are part of Pushkin Press. The lovely folk at Unbound sent me an absolute, oh my goodness, I've just seen how it's written as well. Wow. I'm going to show you some pages actually before I show you what the book is. I don't know if that has come out or not. Yeah, I don't know if you see that. It's kind of, the text is all over the shop. And this is Patrick McCabe's Pogue Mahone, and this is a big chunkster of a book. Patrick McCabe's written a lot of previous novels. I don't think I've read any of his, but his name really rings a bell. But it's a wild free verse monologue steeped in music and folklore. Now, music made me go, but folklore made me go, ooh. A man called Dan is living in England with his Irish family, and what happened to them in Ireland that left them exiled and they had to come here. It's kind of a family saga told in verse with some folklore thrown in. Let's ignore the music bit. So that sounds really intriguing to me. I have talked about this book on the channel before because I've had the proof of it for a while and I really need to get to it. I said I was going to read this before New Year actually, and I didn't, so naughty me, because it is one of the books I'm most excited about. It is Devotion by Hannah Kent, which is, I don't know how contemporary or historical it is, because Hannah Kent has tended to write historical fiction, but I know it's about a lesbian relationship, and apparently it's incredibly moving. And Sarah Winman says it's a glorious love story. So there we go. Looking forward to heading to that soon. The book that I might pick, I mentioned prompts earlier, I think. I've got prompt jars over there. And my mum is and I are picking prompts for each other every month. And next month, my mum has chosen the prompt featuring a bird or birds, and I think this book is going to be perfect for that. It's When We Were Birds by Ayana Lloyd Banwo, and not only has it got one of the most beautiful covers with the birds in the title, it's also, and it's got birds on the back actually, there you go. I mean, it is, and really pretty. That's just stunning. But it's also, when I was reading through, I thought, are there going to be birds in it though? Because I feel like the birds have to be in the book, otherwise does it count? And it does say, in an old house on the hill where the city meets the rainforest, Yejidi's mother, who's like our main protagonist, I think, is dying, and she leaves behind a legacy that passes to Yejidi the power to speak to the dead. The women of Yejidi's family are human, but also not, descended from Corbo, the blackbirds that fly east at sunset, taking with them the souls of the dead. I mean, that just sounds incredible. So sometimes it does pay to read a blurb. I won't lie though, it was mainly this gorgeous cover that sent me in its direction. So very excited for that, and I think I'll definitely be reading that in February. So excited for this novel. Really loved the author's first novel, The Private Joys of Nina Maloney. But anyway, it's here again now by Ojukwu Nzelu. And yeah, can't wait for this. Apparently it's about masculinity, the relationships between men, fathers and sons. Really intriguing. So yeah, looking forward to that. He is prolific, Will Dean. I've been sent, I think, every Will Dean book that he's written, and I'm yet to read one. I must read him this year. But this is Firstborn, and I think it's a stand-alone book. It's not one of the... Is it Tuva, the name of the protagonist in his book? So I don't think he's a detective. Anyway, it says on the cover, the last thing a twin expects is to be alone. That's all I need to know. It sounds creepy. And then, last but not least from publishers, I'm so excited about this. And for Mum's prompt for March, I have... with a creepy title, and what I might do is save this to then, although I'm so desperate to read it because CJ reads. Really loved it. It's I Love You but I've Chosen Darkness by Claire Vay Watkins, and it just sounds really good, and I think this cover is really fab. Although it doesn't want to seem to, there we go. Sometimes when you hear someone, just sort of the way they talk about a book so much, can just draw you to it. So yeah, that's what's happened with that one. Right, on to books that I bought myself. And let's start with books that I actually bought in December but arrived in January. And the first are 4 books from Tate Publishing. We have these ones. And the reason that I headed to this was when I did an event with Bernadine Everstow towards the end of last year, she mentioned that she'd done a book for Tate, but it's this one, it's Feminism, and it's where she's responding to artworks and possibly sort of what was the term that was sort of, I don't know, putting them in a different context, I guess. Anyway, so we have Feminism by Bernadine Everstow. We have Class by Nathalie Ola. We have Gender by Travis Alabanza. And we have Empire by Afua Hirsch. So I'm looking forward to all of those. I discovered via Instagram actually a press that I hadn't heard of called Hajal Press, and there were 2 books that sounded amazing, so I ordered them straight from the publisher. We have the fictional book Sandbach Beneath Unlikely Skies by Heather Hayek, and this is vignettes, and I think it's auto-fiction, of a childhood growing up in Gaza in Palestine. Apparently it's filled with honey and warmth, and that description just sounded so gorgeous. I was like, yep, I'll read that one. And then we have non-fiction wise, Experiments in Imagining Otherwise by Lola Olufemi, which when I was trying to look up what it was about, just sounds unlike anything I've ever heard. I mean, the writing is kind of quite different for a start, and you've also got like, what did I just see? Sort of, yeah, it intrigued me when I saw it, so I thought, right, I'm going to pick myself up that. Then I bought this when it won the prize that it's just won, and I can't remember what the prize is. Is it the Ted Hughes Prize for Poetry, the T.S. Eliot Prize, one of them? It's C plus Nto and Othered Poems by Joelle Taylor. Hadn't heard of this before. It's queer poetry, which I'm really into. And yeah, as soon as I saw it won, I was like, right, I need to get me that. And so I've been to, well, right, as I record this, it's my first full week. I say full, 3 days of a full-time job, but 3 days of my main day job. I freelanced the 2 other days. It was my first week and it was quite intense. So almost every lunchtime I went to Waterstones, and this was one thing that I bought there. But before that, back at the beginning of January, the first bookshop I actually went into was the wonderful Booker Bookshop in Oswald Street. I absolutely love it. You'll have seen that in my latest vlog, which is my first vlog of the year and kind of combines a week and a half of the beginning of the year. It's up Under the Rainbow there by Celia Lasky. I have to say, I really love the American edition more. But what I'm going to do is read this before I go to America, and then if I love it, I will pick that book up out there, or that edition up out there. But it's about a town in Kansas called Big Bear where, well, it's meant to be like the most homophobic place in America. And so a group of queer people go there, and it's what follows on from that. Sounds intriguing. Then we have Hare House, which is their book of the month this month at Booker, and Ruth, who works there, absolutely hand-sold me this, and she was selling it. It sounded really interesting, but there was one particular thing she said where I was like, oh, I have to read that book. And it was when she said, it's just a really nasty book, but in a good way. And I was like, oh, I am there. What's thrilled me is that it's set in Dumfries, and Dumfries is where one of the libraries on my project that I'm working on in my 3 days a week day job is going to be, so I can read it. And yeah, I'm really, really excited for that. I forgot to mention a kind gift, or 2 gifts that I actually got from one of you lovely lot. Over Christmas I put a wish list out, which I thought you couldn't find, but obviously if you go back to Vlogmas I guess you can find the links there because I haven't taken them out. It was from the lovely Helen Nelson, who not only got me Know My Name, which I know Mercedes loved, Noelle loved this, I need to get to it, it's meant to be incredible, by Chanel Miller, and this is about her having been assaulted by somebody who was a promising sportsman and basically who got away with it, and she remained anonymous for a long time until she felt, no, actually I need to speak out about this. Yeah, and so many people's favourite non-fiction book, or just book, of last year, so I wanted to read it, so thank you hugely to Helen for that. She also sent me Unstable Unicorns, so I shall be playing that at some point. I'll try and get it on camera because I'm not good at games. Oh, I get frustrated. Now, this does lead nicely, actually, as it's been on so many best of lists, to a project that I am doing, which is to read some of my favourite booktubers' favourite books of the year for a reading vlog. I said I was going to do this back in my intentions video beginning of January. I have a few of them here. So Ben over at Doom Antidote mentioned What You Can See From Here by Mariana Leckie, and he'd said he'd been really surprised to not hear about this because what it's basically about is a town where I think things are starting to go wrong. There's like an omen, and someone's about to die, and it starts to look at the folklore of this town. Now that sounds absolutely my kind of thing. And yeah, so as I was saying, Ben was saying like he couldn't quite understand why people hadn't bought it. I think it's because this cover is really misleading. This to me looks like it's going to be, and no offence to those books at all, because I've read them and very much enjoyed them, like one of the cosy #1 ladies detective agency kind of books. And so that's why I hadn't headed to it. But as soon as I heard him rave about it, I was like, oh, this sounds amazing, because it's basically about folklore in West Germany. And I want to travel around the world a lot more with my reading. And I don't think I've just read the title chapter of this, which is Sex with Renata Blows My Mind. Well, I'm sure it does, saucy. Just trying to now see if there's any other saucy titles, just in case. No. Anyway, so yeah, Ben really raved about it. So I thought, right, that's one that I'm going to read. As I am, the lovely Bob, and I'll mention all of their channels down below, by the way, so you can go and find out more, mentioned a dress book by Neil Bartlett, who I have read before. I absolutely loved Skin Lane, but I haven't read ever since. He's one of those authors that, like, I've collected a few of his books, so some of them are out of print and they're on my shelves back there. And I was thinking about backlist this year of his, but I mean, that is gorgeous. And Bob said it basically moved him to tears in parts. And I was like, well, wow, I have to read it then. So I've now got it, and it's from an independent small press. It's from Incandescent, so thrilled with that. And Lena recommended this, which is a young adult book, which I wouldn't have normally picked up, but she said it was so good that like everyone should read it, so I'm going to. It's The Murderous Ape by Jacob Wegelius. And it just sounds like an absolute romp. And I think what I'd like is to have books like these on hand, although I'll probably read this quite soon, for that video that I want to do, maybe in February actually. I want to have a lot of books to hand that are books that I know are going to spark joy in me if I'm ever having a bit of a wobble. And with a body shape like mine, chunky funky, I have a few wobbles daily. Me more of a mental wobble though. I randomly picked this up in the Waterstones half price sale. It's Nina Simone's Gum, and it's by Warren Ellis, and somebody had suggested this for the prompt that my mum gave me for, I'm talking about prompts a lot, it's going to kind of really impact my reading, I think, although I haven't read any prompts yet, I don't think, so far. We're halfway through the month, so I need to get cracking with that. Anyway, this month, the prompt from my mum for me was to read a book where the protagonist's name is the same as yours, and somebody's saying you could go with Nina Simone, but like take off, obviously, there you go, Nina Simon, but it didn't really count. That said, I found this so interesting, like the premise of this, which is about how Warren Ellis ended up with a piece of Nina Simone's gun, which then ended up in one of Nick Cave's like show galleries or something. And it's all about the things that what I suppose are important items to us that might not be important to anyone else. It's also a bit of history about Nina Simone and the things that we lose as well in life and what goes on. And I just loved, I've sold that very badly, but once I've read it, hopefully I'll be able to say more. I just loved the sound of that. It just sounded so ace. And I thought, right, that is going to be a random pick, and it was. I also, though it wasn't half price, but I picked it up, got The Raptures by Jan Carson from Waterstones. And the reason for this is I know that I have a Jan Carson book on my shelves, and it's one that I'm meant to read. It's called The Firestarters, and I meant to read it for the last book hibernation ever, last autumn. How dramatic, ever. But this sounded amazing, and it's set in Northern Ireland, not far from where another of my libraries is going to be on the project that I'm working on with my day job. It's about a summer, and everyone's really excited for the summer, and then a mysterious illness starts to spread around the town, and it just sounded so creepy and ominous, and a little close to the bone, what with the platypus that's going on around the world. I just thought, no, this sounds really, really like the sort of book that I want to read right now. Haven't read it right now. The intention actually was to pick it up and read it straight from the bookshop, but I just didn't, so there we go. But that was the intention, so I have had some intention. Can't say I have for the next 5 because they're all picked up in a second-hand bookshop in Bishop's Castle, where we went for a surprise birthday celebration for my brother's 21st. You'll see that in the vlog, and you'll see what I got. So I'll just go through these very quickly. First of all, this is it a proof edition or just the American edition, international edition of What Strange Paradise by Omar El Akkad, and Akkad. I can't see it because I'd covered up the bottom. It looked like an L. This won the Giller Prize, and I was like, oh, I'm really intrigued, but the British cover is so boring. I was like, no, I don't fancy it. I really, really want the American edition. I'm going to get it when I'm out there. Didn't need to. It was £4 in a second-hand shop in Bishop's Castle in Shropshire, of all the places. Random. As was, but for a little bit less, I think, Patricia Grace's Potiki, which is a New Zealand classic, and I would like to read a lot more classics from around the world, not just contemporary books. And interestingly, I've read a lot of Australian fiction, but I don't think I've read, apart from Stella Duffy, who now lives in the UK, that much New Zealand fiction that I can think of, so need to get to it. Then, and also that I need to hold me responsible to this, hold me accountable. I need to read a Leslie Glaister book within the first quarter of this year, because I pick up all her books because they all sound really me. This one's sticking to Australia, and she just sounds like such a me author, and I'll absolutely love her. And when I showed this on Instagram and actually on Twitter, people went bonkers about how great she was and how she's totally not read enough. And so, yeah, this is the year for me to discover her, and hopefully I can pass on that discovery to you. And then I got 2 New York Review books, which I don't tend to get that often. They're here. And this one I was a bit like that about, but the blurb, which I know I've said I don't really read, actually sold me, and I thought this would be good to read before I go to America. This is The Tenants of Moonbloom by Edward Lewis Wallant, and this is about a man whose husband owns a tenement block in Manhattan, and he goes to go and look after it, and it's about all the different characters that he meets, including a gay jazz musician with a sideline as a gigolo, a Holocaust survivor, and a brilliant young black writer modelled on James Baldwin. And I was like, yeah, I need to read that. I really like the font in them as well. And the other one, and this sounds properly me, is A King Alone. It's set in a remote alpine village where people are going missing. And is it like that there's a serial killer or something going on like that? Or could it be something more supernatural? It just sounded right up my street. So yeah, I'm hoping to get to that in due course. I am thinking quite a lot of these books will come out in 2022. So actually sorting out the shelves this month might not be as bad as I think. 2 books that I ordered from abroad, one from Canada, is Rachel Rose's The Octopus Has 3 Hearts. This is a short story collection that was up for the aforementioned Giller Prize, and I just thought looked gorgeous. And I love all things octopi, ever since watching My Octopus Teacher. It just sounded like some really, really fantastic short stories, and so I got it. Also, the cover is stunning. And I've seen Jalen, I think, talk about this. And who else have I seen? It's been, and Mercedes mentioned it as one of the short story collections she was most looking forward to. Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. And these are interconnected stories around Fiona and Jane, but they are short stories that kind of create a novel-ish. And it just sounded brilliant. Both Mercedes and Jalen sold it to me, and so I ordered that. Then, Crime Time with Pip is returning. We're back at we're going to be filming once the new furniture arrives. Like, there's going to be a sofa and stuff arriving in here, and so it'll be the first video, or at least one of the first videos I film on that sofa. We are going to be reading Girl A by Abigail Dean, which is one of the books that I talk about in my female authors of the future video, so if you want to find more, head to that for that. And then we have, also mentioned in that video, Sankofa by Chibundu Onuzu. So yeah, I picked this up because of a list that it's on, along with Girl A. Going back to favourite books by some of the booktubers that I love. Jennifer talked about Chouette, which is a book I've been looking at for ages, and having read Night Bitch so far this year, I'm really enjoying this sort of weird using animals to talk about motherhood, etc. I really love that about it, although it does it very differently from this one, because this is about a woman who gives birth to an owl, and Jennifer had sold the rights to this from America to the UK, and I just loved that. I should say, sorry, it's Jennifer from Insert Literary Pun here. That was enough for me. I was like, right, I'm going to have to read it. And I just noticed the quote on the cover is from Ruman Allen, whose Leave the World Behind was one of my favourite books of last year. And I should say, sorry, it's by Claire Orzetsky. So yeah, I'm really, really excited for this one. I'll probably read that one quite soon, actually. Mercedes hasn't done her favourite books of the year as this is being recorded. Hopefully it'll have gone live before, because I'm very excited for that one. As I am, everyone's actually seen that Jen's has dropped. Actually, I need to watch that. She recently raved about in her December wrap-up The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Holler, which is the story of a woman who has slept with her childhood friend while her husband, I think, is somewhere else very nearby. And it's the 24 hours that follow on from that, but the 50 years leading up to it. And this just sounded brilliant. And I have to say, I was sent the proof of this and didn't fancy it at all. And then saw Mercedes talking about it, and it was still half price in the Waterstones that I went to, so I got it. I don't think it possibly should have been, but anyway, never mind. I've also noticed it's a little bit, it's got a little tear on the cover. Anyway, last but not least, because we've been for nearly half an hour, I've got a copy of this imported from America because I have the proof and I know I'm going to love it. And sometimes I like to battle the proof around a bit, so we'll then either buy like the paperback later on or get myself the UK hardback. But this American hardback is so gorgeous, and I know the book's going to be as beautiful and brilliant and wonderful as this cover. It's The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak, and I just think that is absolutely ridiculously pretty. And I can't remember who it was who was taking the mickey out of me for ordering beautiful book covers, because they're like, you don't see the cover on the shelves, do you? Just see the spines. Good point. So there we go. That's a lot of books. That's one of the biggest hauls I think I've done in a couple of years. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these books and loved them. If you didn't love them, don't tell me now, because I'm excited about them. I'm very, very excited about all of these. Not so excited about how I'm going to sort out the bookshelves, but never mind. Last time I'll be filming here, when I do my January wrap-up part one, it'll be on an armchair somewhere else in this room, because this desk will have gone by the time this video goes live, so literally I won't have anything to lean on. But thankfully it was still here to keep this absolute mound, there's some more there, of books sturdy and steady while I was telling you all about them. Also, I should just say, if you have been getting lots of notifications from me via YouTube, lots of likes and stuff, I suddenly discovered there was like thousands of comments that I haven't seen over the last almost six years that I've been doing this. So I've just been going back and liking them, because it shows you them in the app, and it just really bothers me that I haven't like responded to everybody and thanked everybody. And hopefully you'll see that I'm being much better at responding to comments as they come in. So do leave your comments below, but just don't tell me if you hated any of these, because that'll make me cross. Don't make me cross, make me joyful. I'm talking rubbish now. I'm gonna go. It was lovely to see you all and to speak to you all, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.